Ever notice how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with? That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. Welcome to the second hour of the show already. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. I do appreciate it. Manhood Hour is coming up in the next hour. It is Wednesday. Manhood Hour is coming up. And once again, thank you, Patrick Rooney, for sitting in for me. One of the smartest white men on this side of heaven. He sat in on Monday and Tuesday, and I do appreciate that. Lots of stuff to cover. And by the way, for those who don't know, I was in Washington, D.C. at the a rally, D.C. March for Jobs rally put on by the Black American Leadership Alliance, and it was really something else. It was more than a notion. My organization sponsored that. We're going to have some pictures of that on my website, hopefully today, if not tomorrow for sure. So much stuff going on. Lots of stuff to talk about today. The George Zimmerman trial, as you know, George was not found guilty, and there's a big uproar about that in this country. About that. A lot of folks are not happy about it. We're going to get to all of that, as well as your phone calls. I have with me Paul Riddick. He's a Norfolk, Virginia City Council member. He is a former president of the Norfolk branch of the NAACP. I want to get his reaction, Paul's reaction to the verdict of the George Zimmerman's trial, as well as apparently the president of the Norfolk, Virginia chapter of the NAACP has something to say about the George Zimmerman trial, and there's lots of reaction to that. We're going to play that soundbite for you here in a minute. Let me bring Paul in. Paul, good morning, sir, and welcome to the show.
Well, good morning to you. I guess you'd say I'm a neophyte in terms of your show. It doesn't come to our area. And well, good morning.
Good morning. I appreciate you being here. Where were you the president of Virginia, the NAACP there in Norfolk, Virginia?
I was president from 1987 until 1990.
1990. And now you're a city councilman there, is that right?
Yes, I was elected to the Norfolk City Council in 1992. In 1990, the Supreme Court said that Norfolk had to go to the ward system. We originally had the old at-large system, but the Supreme Court sided with some plaintiffs that the at-large system diluted the black vote, and so Norfolk has a ward system.
Oh, amazing. How do you feel about the verdict in the George Zimmerman trial? How do you feel about the outcome of that?
Yeah, I was disappointed in the verdict because a murder did take place, and I believe that whether it had been a level of manslaughter, if it had not been second-degree murder, if it had been some level of manslaughter, then that I believe that George Zimmerman should have been convicted.
And why that? Why do you believe he should have been?
Well, I go back to the very, very beginning, and the prosecution, in my opinion, did not dwell on this enough. When George Zimmerman called the local police department, the first thing that they told him was not to follow Trayvon Martin. And to me, that should have been the end of it. He should have, in my opinion, stayed by his car if he had a flashing light as a neighborhood watch person or something to let the police officers know where he was, meaning Zimmerman, so that he could show them who he was talking about and his concerns.
Do you believe
so to
that?
me,
You believe
it
that
should have stopped right there.
You believe that George Zimmerman continued to follow Trayvon after he was told not to?
Yes, and I
Did
think
anything come out? Did anything come out in the trial to prove or indicate that George continued to follow Trayvon?
that's where I think the prosecution was weak, because they didn't dwell on that at all.
Maybe because it didn't happen.
Well, when they told him not to follow him, and Trayvon was walking home, Zimmerman did not stay in his car. He got out of his car and followed this young fella.
That doesn't mean he followed Trayvon. Do you think that had the prosecutors had any proof that George Zimmerman continued to follow Trayvon after being told not to, they would not have presented that in court?
Yeah, I think so, because there was a weak prosecution team.
So you think they had the information but would not present it?
Right.
You think they had proof, the prosecutors had proof that George Zimmerman continued to follow Trayvon but would not present it?
Absolutely.
Why would they not present that?
I have no idea. That's what's amazing to me.
But could you be wrong? Maybe your mind has got you believing something that's not true.
Well, when
Is that possible?
When the event and everything that I know about it, I probably get it just the same way you do, and that's from media and accounts from the media.
But the media don't tell the truth all the time.
Well, the 911 dispatcher told this fella, meaning Zimmerman,
right? But there's no proof that he continued to follow him. So you're believing this in your mind.
Well, he didn't stay in his automobile, as I had mentioned earlier.
But he didn't. There's no proof he continued to follow Trayvon. And so you believe in this because the media said it. There's no proof of it.
I'm saying I'm believing it because if I am at point A, and if I call the police officers or the authorities or the 911 operators, and they tell me, stay at point A, don't follow this person. Well, when they came, Mr. Zimmerman was not at point A.
But that doesn't mean he followed Trayvon. Let me ask, was it a fair trial?
I think it was a fair trial in terms of the judicial system. It was a fair trial from all that I could see. I didn't watch the entire trial. I didn't start watching the trial. I didn't really become interested in the trial itself until Trayvon's mother testified. And from that point on, I began to watch the trial. So from what I could see, the judge ran a very orderly court, and it looked to me as if she ran it according to the judicial regulations at a courtroom and the quorum of a courtroom.
So the trial was fair, but you're not accepting the results because in your mind you have something else going on because you listen to the media.
No, what I could see from the prosecution should have, in my opinion, prepped the medical examiner. The medical examiner, and I don't know whether it was actually a language barrier, meaning the first Asian medical examiner, but I think in my opinion, the prosecution should have prepped the medical examiner. The young lady who was on the phone talking
Why would they need prepping? You want them to get up and tell the truth in the court. Why do they need prepping?
In all cases, and if you want to do something, you don't just put a person on a stand cold. If you want to win a case, you don't put them on a stand cold. And I'm sure that the defense attorneys prep their witnesses.
Let me ask this: is it possible that you could be wrong in the way that in believing that George Zimmerman continued to follow Trayvon? Because you got this from the media, is it possible that you could be wrong?
Well, it's possible that I could be wrong, but let's take it back to just a logical standpoint. If I'm at point A and I'm told not to follow a person, to stay in my car, then when the confrontation begins, if I'm at point B or point C, then I have not done what the authorities suggested or asked me to do.
Well, according to George, the reason that what he did was he went to look for an address to give them so that the police can come directly into the area that he was in. Or
I don't believe that.
You don't
I
believe
don't
that?
believe that because.
Do you believe George
if,
Zimmerman is a racist?
Oh, I don't have an opinion on that.
Do you think he killed Trayvon Martin because he was black?
Yeah, I do.
You believe George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin simply because he was black?
Not simply because. I think the encounters occurred because he was black. Now, you asked me if I thought George Zimmerman was a racist. I have no idea, and I can't have an opinion on that. I'm just not going to.
But you have an opinion about following Trayvon.
I do.
But you don't have any proof on that either.
I do have the proof of that because he you know.
Let me take a quick break. Let me take a quick break, Paul. We'll come back to you right after this break. Paul Riddick is with me. He is a former president of the NAACP Norfolk branch and also a city councilman there in Norfolk, Virginia. He's not happy with the outcome of the George Zimmerman trial, but also the president of that Norfolk, Virginia branch of the NAACP made a comment or tweeted a comment or wrote it on his Facebook page. And there's an outcry about that. They want the president of the NAACP chapter Norfolk fired. They want him out of there. And Paul, again, I appreciate you being here.
Sure.
Paul, I want to play for the folks the response of the present president of the NAACP chapter there in Norfolk, Virginia,
Okay.
Tristan Bro. I want the folks to hear that, and then I'll get your response to it.
Okay. All right.
Well, it seems much of the country is gripped by the George Zimmerman murder trial. And as it comes to a close, many people here in Hampton Roads are upset about a Facebook post.
It comes from the local head of the NAACP, and new at 11, 10 on your sides, Jason Marks explains what it says. Who is so angry about it? Jason?
Tom, we know how racially charged the Zimmerman case has been from the beginning, and local NAACP members say they don't need their president stirring the pot. It has become so heated, even a Norfolk City councilman believes the current president needs to go. 25-year-old Tristan Bro was sworn in January as the president of the Norfolk NAACP. He is the youngest president in the branch's history, but members of the organization are calling for him to step down.
He obviously does not have the maturity enough to realize when to speak and when not to speak.
The controversy started Friday morning. Bro posted on his personal Facebook page a comment about the George Zimmerman trial. The remark quickly spread.
My initial reaction is that it wasn't true, that somebody had gone on his Facebook and planted this. I mean, I just couldn't imagine the president of the Norfolk branch of the NAACP, which I've been president of in the past, making a statement like that.
Is that it, Andre? Oh, one more? Okay.
The post read, quote, "I wonder why it is that we are always willing to say someone who clearly had a shaky past was the victim." The statement was referring to Trayvon Martin.
And I think this should have been tried in the courtroom instead of social media.
Bob Rawls is also a past president of the Norfolk chapter. He's worried how the statement reflects on fellow members.
If he had been talking to another person or 2 or 3 people and voiced his personal opinion, that's different. But when you put it on social media and someone in Florida, someone in California, Oregon, New York is reading this, that is wrong.
The post went on to ask if people are blinded to why Trayvon was staying with his dad and why he wasn't at home at the time of the shooting. We made several attempts to get in touch with Bro through calls and text, but he never responded. Local members who voted him into office are now hoping national ones will take him out.
I don't know how the recall process works, but, I think they should recall him.
Yeah, and take a look at this picture going around Facebook, the same place where all of this started. Look at these sweatshirts that local members are talking about wearing to their next meeting. Now they're asking for Bro, obviously, to step down. Now, Bro knew we were looking for him. I was told by several people that he knew that and that he was putting out a statement somewhere tonight. We're still waiting for that statement.
Amazing, huh? And Paul,
yes.
You still want Tristan Bro to be recalled?
Well, I tell you what, I'm the type of guy that I don't really carry something a long ways. I think it all came to the attention at a time when I guess most people will agree that this is probably one of the most racially charged trials going on. Since then, there have been apologies made to the community by Tristan Bro. And so since he's apologized and has promised to go away and sin no more, I'm not going to rush to that judgment. The active members of the NAACP locally, they might, want to do that. But initially, that was my thought. Right now, he's apologized and said he was wrong. So therefore, I'll take the man at his word and let it go at that.
Amazing. He wrote, as I look at this Paul, there's a lot of noise going on in the background there.
Okay, I'm with you.
Are you in the kitchen?
Okay, I'm sorry. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Are you in the kitchen?
No, I actually dropped my daggone cell phone. I wanted to put it on vibrate so
I see.
So we wouldn't be disturbed.
Oh, okay. Tristan Rowe, as I look at this George Zimmerman case, I wonder why is it that we are always willing to say someone so clearly, someone who clearly had a shaky past was the victim. Are we blinded about why Trayvon was at his dad's house in the first place? And why wasn't he at home at the time he was shot? Please think logically and not racially. That is so profound. Why would anybody, any member or heads of the NAACP be upset about the truth? Why did you guys become upset about the truth?
Well, first of all, as far as the truth, I have no indication that Trayvon Martin had a shaky past. He was 3 weeks beyond his 16th birthday. Obviously, and when I say obviously, based on his mother's background, the fact that he had a brother who's already in college, and the family was a functional family in our society in terms of how functional is described. The mother had been on her job for 24 years. It seemed to me that this young man was on the right path. So maybe somebody knew something, or maybe Bro knew something or had read something about Trayvon that I was not privileged of.
How is that he did not? You don't know that he had a shady past. Will you believe that George Zimmerman did not? I mean, that George Zimmerman continued to follow Trayvon where there's no proof of that. But let me ask, you didn't know that Trayvon Martin was thrown out of school several times. He was a pot smoker. He was caught with a pipe in his backpack at school. There are photos with him with marijuana and a gun and tattoos all over his body. His parents were not together. There was divorce. You didn't know Trayvon was a thug. Okay.
Now let's take those things one by one. And I want you to believe me, just as sure as I'm sitting here, I had no idea of anything that you just mentioned, okay? First of all, I did hear from the medical examiner's testimony that he had traces of marijuana in his system.
At the time the fight happened, or the shooting happened.
As far as his parents being divorced, there's no novelty in that. We're in America, and we have divorces, all the time. And so those things really don't mount up to much in my eyesight.
So that doesn't matter that his parents were not together and this guy is out just becoming a thug in the community?
Well, it was halftime of the NBA All-Star game. So I'm saying that Trayvon had probably gone to the store.
Probably.
Gone to the store, got some Skittles, got some iced tea to go back and watch the second half of the NBA All-Star game.
Oh my God! Let me ask you this: what's wrong with Tristan Bro having his opinion and giving advice to people that, with the intent to help the people, instead of hurting them by saying, you know what, this boy had a shady past. Why are you always giving the thugs credit when it should not be that way? What's wrong with him saying that?
Yeah. In his position, in his leadership position, some things you don't say publicly. Social media is something I have I've never sent an email, don't even know anything about that Facebook. And so it's certain things that in certain capacities you don't do, or you just don't expect those persons to do. I have been in public service, and when I started out earlier.
Let me ask you this, Paul. Can I hold you over for another segment?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll hold you over, and then we'll take some calls as well. Back in a moment, folks. Okay, folks, welcome back. I want to go straight back to my guests and to your phone calls because of time here. I do have some announcements, but I'll make them near the end of this hour. Manhood Hour is coming up in the second hour, and it's all about, we have a guest coming up in the second hour as well. Very interesting guest. I think you're going to really enjoy, like Kevin Jackson. He is a black conservative. He'll be here in the third hour today, at least at the top of the third hour. Paul Riddick is with me, and he's a former president of the Norfolk chapter of the NAACP and a city councilman there in Virginia. And their president of the chapter today said that, asking the folks, why are they giving Trayvon Martin so much credit and reacting in the manner that they are when Trayvon Martin was, in essence, a thug? But the blacks are jumping on his side rather than looking at the real picture. He's now in trouble. There are people calling for him to be recalled. Tristan Bro, they want him recalled. And at one point, Paul, you wanted him recalled, but now since he has apologized, you're not necessarily for the recall.
Yeah, not necessarily. I am not beating the drum, for the recall.
Let me ask you this. Is it? Are you, as a president of the NAACP chapter, are you allowed to tell the truth to black people?
I think if you're in a public setting, one thing that I think we all must realize, when you speak, sometimes even a closed setting, it's like you're speaking for the entire party. Now, I'm thinking Mitt Romney. When Mitt Romney was on tape in small quarters, speaking about writing off to 12% or whatever he attributed, to, it gave the appearance to a lot of voters that he was speaking for the entire Republican Party, when actually he wasn't. He was, it was his opinion, and he was sharing his opinion with people that he thought that he could trust and keep a secret. So when you're speaking, and you have an office, I've learned from experience, you just cannot. I can't make a blanket statement and indict a Norfolk City Council. I can't do that.
I know, but the advice that he gave to black Americans as a president of the NAACP chapter there was good advice, because blacks tend, not all, but whenever there's a white and black situation, blacks tend to go with the thug in the situation. It doesn't matter how corrupt they are, how racist they are, whether they're pot smoking or rap crapping, singing kind of a person. The blacks tend to take the side of the thug and turn them into a hero. And Tristan Bro was saying, stop doing that, black people. Is he allowed to publicly correct black people as a head of the
let's say
NAACP?
for instance, if he was at a
Give me a yes or no first with an explanation.
Okay,
Are
what was
you
that question
allowed
again?
to tell the truth to black people if you are a member or the head of the NAACP?
Yes, you are.
So
If
why
it's-
is he
if it's
being
the truth.
why is he being punished for telling the truth to blacks?
Because he didn't say it. He didn't say it at an NAACP branch meeting. He did not call a press conference to allow media to be there to ask questions. When you in a situation like, if you're going to say it, don't say it behind closed doors. Say it to your audience. Say it to your
But he
branch.
said it to his audience. He wrote this. It was a Facebook post. So
Yeah.
he said it to an audience. He didn't say it in private.
I have no clue about social media except that it burns you.
But you do know it was a Facebook post, right?
It was a Facebook post.
So he
and
made it public when he said to black people, stop taking up for the criminals.
And, you know, I'm not going to even believe that Trayvon Martin was a criminal
Why not? Why don't you want to believe the truth?
because I have no indication of that.
I just told you all the indication. You have no indication
Okay,
that,
now, you
that
know,
George
you said-
Zimmerman continued to follow Trayvon, but you believe in that.
But you know what? In thinking about it, George Zimmerman admitted following Trayvon.
No, he did not admit to
You need
continue
go
to
back
follow
and
him.
check it out. But anyway, let's go back to Trayvon.
But he never admitted. He never said he followed Trayvon after he was told not
I think
to.
he did.
And also,
I'll check my sources. But listen, let's go back to this portion right here. You mentioned you called Trayvon pot smoking. He had a
he's a thug. He was a thug.
Now, let me ask you this. Why are so many states approving the sale of marijuana? Why did former mayor of Chicago, Daley...
What does that have to do with Trayvon being a thug?
He's not a thug. He was a young boy.
Well, he's not a
killed
thug now, but he was
wasn't a
then.
thug then. I don't think he was a thug.
But you say you don't know. How can you make that statement?
I don't believe he's a thug.
Why? Why don't you believe it?
I could just look at that little fellow's face and have no belief that he's
And
a
that's
thug.
another point. You guys call him a child. He was a
16
baby.
years old. 16 years old, you don't think that's a child?
In
Now,
Chicago,
I was looking
16-year-olds. In
Now,
Chicago, 16-year-old. Hold on, Paul. Hey, Paul.
Almost contemporaries. You and I are almost contemporaries. At 16, you and I had a great amount more of maturity than 16-year-olds today.
You know
Would
why?
you admit-
Because
would you-
we were raised by decent parents. Trayvon Martin was not raised by decent parents.
Why were they not decent? Because they were divorced?
For whatever reason, they decided not to be there for him. So I don't know what that
They were
is.
there.
That they have some problem.
You can be there for a child. In
He
two
wasn't a
different
child.
households.
He was a thug. He was a football player. He was a
He was
pot
16 years
smoker.
old.
He had guns, according to his Facebook page, holding guns in his hand. And some alleged that he smoked marijuana. Let me ask you this. I got to ask you this. According to Rachel Gentile, Trayvon's friend, some say it was his girlfriend. She was his girlfriend at one point. Said that Trayvon called white people crackers. Said some white cracker was following him. Was that a racist term to call white people a cracker?
Colloquial.
That's not racist?
It's colloquialism.
Is it racist?
No.
It's not racist to call
It's not
white people
racist.
cracker.
It's
Is it
not
racist for white people to call black people the so-called N-word?
It depends on there are cultures, and there are colloquialisms. Now,
Is it racist for white people to call blacks the N-word?
Let me put it this way: I don't believe all whites who've used that term are racist.
Do you believe? Is it racist for white people to call blacks that word?
Yes, I believe it. I believe it's racist.
But it's not racist for black people to call white people crackers.
Cracker, redneck are both colloquial terms. Sometimes you can be.
What do you mean by colloquial?
You can be heralded. Colloquialism, things that you say that's not welcomed in the marketplace.
But so if it's not welcome, why would
in the marketplace? It means that you can speak loosely. A lot of people speak loosely and say things that they're ashamed of because it's not acceptable in the marketplace
Amazing.
or around polite people.
You want to take some calls?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay, right after this break. We're coming straight back to the phones, folks. Amazing stuff. I got to show you this great, great picture. I think it's great. In my opinion, it's great. Of former Congressman Allen West and me at the rally on Monday. For those who are streaming live right now, the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, this is for you because you can see it. Isn't that a great picture? Can they see it, Andre? Isn't that a beautiful picture of Allen West and Jesse Lee Peterson together? I don't normally like my pictures, but this is cool. So that's for you to see. See that? Isn't that a great picture? Yeah, that's a great picture. Allen West is more than a notion. Let me just say, and I'm going right to the calls, concerning Trayvon Martin, his Twitter account name was @NoLimitNigga, Nigga, which is still a nigga. @NoLimitNigga, whatever. He was a 17-year-old football player, not 16, but 17, with tattoos. According to his friend Rachel Gentile, poor Rachel, she's out there. I have some sound bites from her. Trayvon called George Zimmerman a creepy A cracker. And the guy, pot-smoking, gun-toting guy. There is no evidence that Zimmerman continued to pursue Trayvon after a dispatcher told him to stop. That's from CBS News. When the dispatcher asked Zimmerman if Zimmerman is following the team, he replied no or yes. Right, Andre? This is when he was following him. And then he said, "We don't need you to do that," the dispatcher said to Zimmerman. And Zimmerman replied, "Okay." And then the other point I want to make, they said, well, why did Zimmerman stay in his car? Why did he get out of his car? When he was speaking to the dispatcher, he was already out of his car. He didn't get out of his car after they told him not to follow. Just FYI. Paul, give me a quick answer to this, and then we go on to the callers. Mm-hmm. I and most Americans see that the NAACP is a political pawn or tool for the Democratic Party, and that they use situations like this, when there's a white-on-black situation, they call it racism because they want to get blacks angry and involved in order to further their own agenda, and that there is no need for the NAACP. I believe that the NAACP is no different than the KKK, that they do more harm to the nation and to blacks than they do good. Are we wrong about this?
Yeah, I think so. And when you mention the Democratic Party and the NAACP, the first thing that came to my mind is more than likely when the NAACP was established, they had just as many members of their organization who were Republicans, because meaning African Americans did not stop embracing the Republican Party until Herbert Hoover became president. So back during that particular time, I think it could have been, 50-50.
Well, most blacks way back when were Republicans anyway. But let me ask, why is it that the NAACP, if they cared about black people, according to blackgenocide.com, over 1,800 black babies are aborted every day. If the NAACP truly cared about black people, why do they support Planned Parenthood and not the black life?
Well, you know what? The fortunate thing about my position as a local elected official is I never have to weigh in on anything like that. And in my position is that I believe that it's up to the woman, and I leave it just like that. locally. We don't.
But
get
it's a
into that
genocide. It
argument.
doesn't bother you guys that it's a genocide upon the black community?
I don't view it as a genocide. It's up to the woman.
Wow. Let's go.
I tell you, I tell you what.
What?
I used to tell my mother, I'm glad she didn't send me back. I put it to you that way.
Amazing. Let's go to Corona, California, and talk to Judy. Judy, thanks for calling. Thanks for holding you on the air.
Okay. Hi. How you doing?
All is well, Judy. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, fun to call in and have the opportunity. Yeah, just a couple of things that I think about this whole thing, and it just saddens me so deeply that our country is being divided like this, and that we are being fed information from the media like this nice gentleman is speaking about. I hear a reasonable person on the phone, and I'm thinking, I just think that when you initially first hear about how the media reports these stories, you just don't hear all about Zimmerman, what kind of a person he was. And I just wanted to point out that you don't get the information all about Trayvon Martin, what kind of person he was. And I'd just like to point out that I believe, when you have problems in your neighborhood, activities in neighborhood, where my neighborhood is, we want to develop a neighborhood watchman. It takes someone with courage to say, I'll volunteer for that.
Yeah.
I'll do that, and I really believe that it takes a good man with courage to volunteer for that type of thing. And I want to also point out that it takes a good man. I did foster parenting because I love kids. And I was a foster parent for children. And I understand that George Zimmerman was a good man, that he fostered and mentored children in his own home.
Black children at that.
Black children at that is right.
Yeah.
And it's not being mentioned. The media doesn't talk about that. This man is a man who honestly didn't like crime in his neighborhood.
Yeah.
He loves people.
He
didn't like crime.
Paul, you agree that the media is doing this because they, along with the NAACP and others, they want to divide and conquer. And that's why they keep blacks in a state of anger by lying to them about racism, because they know that most blacks are going to overreact to that word when it comes to white people. And isn't that pretty sad, Paul?
Well, I disagree with the premise of your statement. I don't think that is the purpose or the agenda of the NAACP.
But that's all they seem to do.
I think they pinpoint it. They highlight it. They highlight.
But they highlight
instances.
something that's is not there.
Well, racism does exist in this country. I am an eternal optimist.
Paul, hold, Paul. Paul, let me take a quick break. I'll come back and let you go. Right after this break, I want you to get off your website. In the next hour, it is Manhood Hour. We're going to have with us for a few minutes a black conservative coming up, Kevin Jackson. Kevin Jackson is dynamite. You don't want to miss out on that. I'm also going to get to your calls here. Let me just allow Paul a chance to, my guest, Paul Riddick, to give out his, Paul, you want to give out your website or anything before I let you run?
I don't have a website.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a website. I'm not, into social media at all.
Well, Paul, I appreciate you coming on. You dealt with it very well, and I do appreciate that. I would recommend that, I know you're past president of the chapter there, that you talk to the heads of the NAACP and get them to first turn back to God, and then show black Americans how to stop hating, stop being so angry, because it's that anger that is destroying the black community. And as long as they hate the white man, as long as they're having their children out of wedlock and relying on the government and someone else to think for them, they're never going to get better. Each generation are only going to get worse rather than getting better, because hatred destroys the person and everything else around you for generations to come. So I would recommend that the NAACP get on the right track and do right by black folks.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think it's a one-way street? Do you think it's just only, you made reference to blacks and hating. Do you think there's hating on the white side, or is it a one-way street?
Well, yeah, you can find that in the white community, especially with the KKK.
Yeah.
And all
But
that. The extreme, the skinhead, but normal white people are not hating black people.
Yeah. What I was saying before you went to break is that I'm an eternal optimist, and I am hopeful that one day in America we won't be dealing with this issue. This morning, when I have a talk radio show I've been doing for about 18 years on a Christian broadcasting station. This morning I was on the way to the station at about 5:45 a.m. Saw this white guy jogging, shirtless, in a predominantly black neighborhood. And I said to myself, I am glad that this guy feels comfortable because nobody is going to attack him because
I wouldn't
of race.
take that risk right now. Let me tell you this, Paul. If black people were to stop, most black people were to stop being racist toward whites, it would be over.
And vice versa.
It would be over. This thing the race issue can end overnight.
I think in most cases we defend ourselves.
It's not black. It's not white racism. It's black racism. That's the problem in the country. Starting with Obama and Eric Holder and everybody else. Well,
and
Paul,
Eric Holder is one of my heroes.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I appreciate you being on, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Judy, thanks for your calls. I let you run there, but call me again, Judy. I love Judy. I got to take a top of the hour news break. When I come back, I'm going to take some calls. I'll get my guest on, but I'm going to take some calls first while the guest is holding on for us, all right? I'll go straight to the calls. Back in a moment.